Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Hello and welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Gabriel Antoniazzi. With me today, it's Darren Jackson and Alison McConnell. Hello to both of you, and hello to everyone at home joining in on all of our social media platforms. We're going to be talking about further wage reductions at Aberdeen. We'll have a look back at some of the friendlies from yesterday and also review Liverpool's title win. So if you have any thoughts, any questions on that, make sure you send them in and I'll try and read as many out as I can. But let's get started at Ibrox, where yesterday Rangers beat Motherwell 4-0 in a delayed fixture. Now, kickoff was meant to be at 6 o'clock. 2 hours later, they kicked off because the two teams had not received their COVID tests on time, so they couldn't go until they had it all approved, which is quite strange because the SFA and SPFL Joint Response Group had confirmed there were no new cases. But Darren, it's just typical Scottish football, isn't it? First game back at Ibrox, delayed by 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a disaster. The boys would have been kind of chapping at the bit, and the Motherwell players looking forward to get going again. But it happens. They got it sorted and they got the game on. So it's all trial by error just now, Gabby.
Yeah, I think you're right. That comes after the Ross County manager Stuart Kettlewell had warned that this was going to happen. Because if you remember back on Saturday, County's friendly with Hibs had been called off because of exactly the same thing. There was late COVID tests, so they couldn't go because it wasn't following the final procedure. So, Alison, it might be something we have to get used to.
I think you really have to be fairly organised when you're doing this. I had read Stuart's comments at the weekend, and I think he was livid at the fact they travelled down and then faced a long journey back up the road with the game scuppered because of the fact the test results hadn't come through in time. I think you have to be very stringent about your timings, about getting things back in, because once the season's up and running, if you're adhering to television times or whatnot, then you're not going to be in a position to ask for an extra hour or an extra 2 hours or then to put the game off.
Yeah, I think if you were a manager, and especially in pre-season when you want to get minutes into the legs, as they say, you'd be livid if it didn't go ahead. But thankfully, this game did. I have to confess, I only watched it on my computer. I'd planned to watch it on the television before the Liverpool game, but I had that one on the TV and then the Rangers game on the computer. But it was another impressive performance from Steven Gerrard's men. It's 3 wins out of 3. And they've not conceded a goal yet in the first half. There was an impressive strike on the volley from Ryan Kent. Joe Aribo slamming through the defences, as he often does. And also Yanis Hadji getting on the score sheet before a second half own goal from Motherwell. Impressive from Rangers. Steven Gerrard said that's how he wants his team to perform for the rest of the season. That's the level he is expecting. What are your thoughts on the result and the performance, Darren Jackson?
Well, it's seemingly a good performance, and as I said, we had this wee debate with Tam Cowan last week about the need for pre-season games and friendlies and all that, and you need them, Gabby. You need them to integrate the new players into the team. You need them to try systems. First of all, you need them to get fitness into the players. So, listen, if Stephen had lost the 3 games, it wouldn't be great, but he wouldn't be losing massive amount of sleep over it. It's getting it right for the first game, but since they've won the 3 games, he'll be delighted, and he'll be delighted that Kent's got a goal because Kent needs to do more. Players don't make price tags, but he cost £7 million. He didn't have an assist last year, Gabby. He needs to do more, so that he'll be delighted with that. Hadji scored again, but one of the biggest things he will be happy about is the clean sheets. Because, as you know, you don't concede goals, you don't lose games, and that was a big thing at the end of the defence. So he'll be delighted with it. But on the other hand, I don't think Stephen Robinson will be losing sleep about it. It would have been a great test for his players. He wouldn't be expecting to go to Ibrox and keeping a hold of the ball and scoring a few goals. You don't want to lose 4 goals, don't get me wrong. So there'll be things that he'll be able to look at and say, right, we can do this better, we'll work on this in the training ground. So that's why you have pre-season games.
Yeah, we'll get on to Stephen Robinson's Motherwell team in a moment. Just a few quick shout-outs. Good afternoon to Dougie Little, John Donald, Stephen Martin, Marion, Christy, Una, Brennan. A few regulars already on there. Don't forget to get all of your questions in. Alison was talking about Ryan Kent there. He needs to produce moments like that. The way that he took the volley, it just shows the technique, the ability he does have. We know he can deliver those moments. He just needs to do it more regularly.
I don't think his talent has ever been in any doubt, but what Rangers need from him is consistency. They paid a lot of money for him, and I agree with Darren. It's completely over the player's head how much a club is prepared to pay for him. But I do think that much was expected of him in terms of that final third. He's an attacking player. He plays in that system, and you would like to think that he would be chipping in regularly with goals. If you look at the likes of James Forrest and Ryan Christie over at Celtic and how often they cut inside and contribute both in terms of goal scoring. I think Christie scored 19. I think Forrest might have been 15 this season. They're fairly consistent in chipping in and adding to the strike force and just supplementing the forward and offering a bit of balance and sharing the load of the goals. But I definitely think you want more from him. You want to see him being a bit more consistent. And I also think there were occasions last term when his temperament let him down a bit. You want to see him just focusing fully on what's going on in the park rather than get involved in some of the side shows that I think he was distracted by at times.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it'll be on his shoulders whether he can keep his cool and deliver on the park. All Rangers fans will be hoping he can. John Ed, good afternoon to you as well. Keep your questions coming in, everyone. You're talking about chipping in because we know that it was Morelos that often carries the burden of all of the goal scoring for Rangers. Aribo, again on the score sheet, looking impressive. Looked to have bulked up a little bit, so I have been impressed with him. Definitely in pre-season. Barisic, as always, marauding down the left, getting balls in. Fantastic cross for Hadji's header. But for me, Hadji is the one. He's the one that stands out for me. When he gets on the ball, he can score. He takes shots. He's not afraid to do that. And it feels like he could be the one that could maybe chip in 10, 15 goals. Darren, you be impressed with him so far?
Yes, he's obviously a talented player. He's got good blood in him. His dad was a wonderful player. And the expectations of playing with the name of Hadji is hard sometimes, but he's taking it on, playing at a place like Ibrox, big, huge pitch, lets him get on the ball more. But you're right, Gabby, and Alison's right. There's too much onus on Morelos, sorry. There's too much onus on Morelos. He scored 29 goals last year, but the wide players, the forward players, the attacking midfield players, they need to chip in with 10, 12, 15 goals a season if you're going to go and win leagues. So there's more made of when Morelos doesn't score goals because nobody else is scoring them consistently. So it's hard on the boy. So if they can get that, especially from Hadji, he looks as though he's not scared to have a go. He gets himself into good positions, good goal-scoring positions, and that's the main thing. Once Kent doesn't get himself into a lot of goal-scoring positions, he stays too wide at times. When the ball's coming down the other side, he needs to get in the box and give himself an opportunity to score goals.
Mm-hmm. Well, what Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale are really keen on is the two inverted number 10s. They want those two to be getting on the score sheet. So hopefully for Rangers fans, for Steven Gerrard, they'll be doing that this season. Just want to go back to you talking about Morelos carrying the burden of the goals as well. You might have to do that for a while at the start of the season because Jermaine Defoe has picked up another injury, a hamstring. Again, he was injured for quite a while last season. They don't know how long he will be out for. They're waiting for the scans to come back. 37 years old now, Defoe, so he is getting on. Gerrard was insistent that Defoe is a big part of his plan for this campaign. So if there's no Defoe, Gerrard's saying he's more than likely going to have to go in the market for a striker. Now, Alison, he possibly would have had to go into the market for a striker anyway. They'd let Cam Berry go back on loan. But do you think this will really force his hand in the transfer market?
Without question. I think you can't afford to go in now without another striker there. If something was to happen to Morelos in the first game up at Pittodrie, where would that leave you? I don't think you can really afford to take that risk. Camberry's obviously gone back, and I just think I would be amazed if he doesn't go back out. I mean, I know this summer there has been a a perennial question with Rangers and Lyndon Dykes, and I just wonder if this might accelerate a move in that direction.
Yeah, what do you reckon with Dykes? There was talk over Dykes possibly moving there in January. They opted for Canberra instead. But do you think he would be keen to play second fiddle somewhere else? Would he back himself to push him off that top spot? And how much money should Livingston be looking for, Alison?
Well, for a start, I don't think any player goes believing that they're going to play second fiddle. I think if you speak to players, most of them go and they have a self-belief that they're good enough to go and oust whoever's in front of them and take the jersey. And certainly if you're worth your salt and you're getting a move to Rangers, you want to go with an appetite and a hunger. And I think we've seen that from Dykes last season. I think he showed up very well when there were big games and when there was a lot of pressure on the club. I think he was excellent in the games. I was through twice for games against Celtic, and I thought he gave Christian Julian quite a torrid time. Arguably one of the best centre halves in the league last year. I thought he gave him a really difficult afternoon both times that I saw him. And I think he has a mentality to go and play at a bigger level. In terms of money, that comes down to Livingston. I'm sure they'll have a figure in mind about what they want to accept, and what you'll probably find in deals like this is it depends on so many vagaries. You'll have an initial fee, and then you'll have other add-ons which come with appearances and goals, etc. But certainly what it comes down to is if the club want him, then I think he's there, and I think he would jump at the chance to go.
Yeah, you at home, who do you reckon Rangers should go for? Any ideas? Let us know. Darren, what do you think? If it was between Lyndon Dykes and going back for Canberra, who would you choose?
For me, there's no option. It's Lyndon Dykes. I don't think Canberra will score the goals. Lyndon Dykes hasn't scored as many goals for Livingston, but I think I'm a huge fan. I think if you're trying to get them into the same team, him and Morelos, you're going to have to change the system. But I think Morelos could play off Dykes no problem. He holds the ball up extremely well, brings a lot of players into play. So you would have to change the system, and it's a bit like Celtic with Griffiths and Edward. Edward can go wander and look for the ball and play off Griffiths, and he can play along the line. But I think he would be a great addition. I've been very, very impressed with him in the games I've watched, and I think he would score goals for Rangers, but I think more what he would bring to the team.
Mm-hmm. A few comments here on who they would like to bring in, Rangers fans. George Donaldson, anyone else play in Scotland yesterday? Gabriel, yes, Motherwell did, incidentally, against Rangers. Let's quickly talk about them. And it was quite interesting from Motherwell. They have recruited well. Liam Donnelly was back at centre-half instead of his usual midfield position. Quite interesting to see him play there, ball-playing centre-half if he does start in the back line. And despite the 4-0 beating, they seemed intent on passing the ball about, which I was quite impressed by. And it seems that they have a style of play now that they want to stick to, even if they're getting beaten. There was no knocking it long or rushing it forward to the striker, which could be impressive, or perhaps it could come back to bite them. Alison, what do you reckon there?
Yeah, I think they changed the system and the style of play last season. I thought they were good to watch. They finished third. Obviously, there was a interruption in the early conclusion of the season due to the pandemic. But I thought once they found their feet in a new system after a fairly inconsistent start last term, I thought they did well. I thought they were quite nice to watch. There was a bit of pace in the team. They were trying to attack. I know there's been a few new additions, but I think they've been brought in to fit into the style that exists. And I think Stephen Robertson will try and build on the foundations that he set last term. I think it'd have been quite a bruising experience last night for them. I don't think you can get away from the fact that 4-0 is a fairly hefty defeat to take just when you're a little over a week away from the beginning of the league campaign kicking off. But I'm sure he'll have taken on board quite a few lessons from the game, and it'll have given him food for thought. But it's a worthwhile exercise, and like you say, what I thought was notable too was a willingness to stick to the system, which is how I fully expect they'll play going forward this term.
Yeah, any cause for concern there, Darren, just 9 days before the season starts, or do you think Rob will be confident in his boys to continue playing the ball up the park and trying to score impressive goals?
Yeah, we've said before, we're talking about Stephen Robinson, and obviously I've been a huge fan of him. getting mentioned for jobs and all that, and how he went from a 3-5-2 physical team to a 4-3-3 mobility and pace. And I think he's done extremely well. They do very well with the recruitment at Motherwell, and those players will get integrated into the team again, the system they play. But yes, they're playing it from the back. And I said it earlier, and I've said it to Tam and all that. That's why you play friendlies, to try things out. We'll play about. If we lose a goal, we'll look at the video. We'll learn from our mistakes, but stick to your principles. And that's obviously his principles this year. Is he's going to play, and it's great to see. But you've got to get results as well.
Mm-hmm. It's good to see for Scottish football, I think, teams, not just the biggest ones, trying to play football. Okay, move on to Dundee United. They beat Rangers B 4-1 yesterday at the Rangers training centre. Lawrence Shankland amongst the goals. I think that United won't be goal shy this season. Perhaps it's the back they have to worry about. Is that a fair claim, Alison?
It is at the minute, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not Lawrence Shankland stays, or whether or not there is any movement for him to come in. You would wonder if Robbie Nielsen, for example, was to go back in and try and take him to Hearts. He obviously knows exactly what he's done. I thought he did an excellent season last year in the Championship. He looks capable of going on to play at a higher level. So I think if they hold on to Shankland, then yeah, I think you would be looking towards the back, and that's where your focus would be. But if someone comes in and you lose a striker who's capable of netting you so many goals, then I think you've got a real headache when it comes to replacing them on the eve of the season's kicking off. And the thing is, just now, because we're so out of sync at the minute in terms of the English transfer window, which obviously opens on Monday, that I think there's been a ripple effect of that, because you won't feel the full force of the window and its movements until everyone is up and running at the same time. So you could yet see someone come in for him even from down south.
Mm-hmm. Darren, a few deals needed for Mickey Mellon at United.
Yes, I think he is. I think defensively, yes. And I actually think that Lawrence needs someone up there to play alongside him. Now, they're not going to get a Dykes, but someone like Dykes. Lawrence's strengths are in the box, scoring goals. He can hold the ball up, but that's not one of his massive strengths. I think if he was to play off a big striker, he would get more goals. But I do think defensively, centre halves, Dundee United definitely need centre halves. Yes.
Mm-hmm. We'll have more on United in the build-up to the start of the Premiership next week. A quick word on the Rangers B team. It's several first-team players playing. Glenn Middleton, Ross McCrory, Greg Doherty, Jordan Jones and Greg Stewart. So, Alison, do you think those five and possibly others will struggle to get into Steven Gerrard's plans this season?
I think it's quite a bloated squad when you look at it. I think for the likes of Greg Stewart, who was out on loan for the latter part of last season, I think you would be keen to get back out. I think if you're playing a B game on the night when the first team has a game and you're not included, I think there's probably a message there for you. And I think the onus, and I'm sure a lot of these players will be keen to either get out on loan or maybe look for a new club. I think if you're not going to be part of the picture, then the better thing to do is to go and try and find somewhere where you're going to be playing regularly. I do think it's still quite a big squad when you look at the numbers. The numbers remain quite big, and I just wonder if maybe Steven Gerrard has to trim it a bit if he's wanting to bring a few more in.
Yeah, it is a bloated squad. I'm sure there will be several exits over the coming months. Of course, we've got the transfer window open until October. Right, that's enough on those two games. Keep your comments coming in on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Kilmarnock 1, Livingston 2 in yesterday's friendly between those two sides. Rory McKenzie opened the scoring early in the second half for the hosts before Alan Forrest and Effie Ambrose scored for Gary Holt's side. Now, Alex Dyer, the Kilmarnock manager, said he wasn't focused on the result. It was good just to get minutes in the legs, as all the managers seem to be saying at the moment. Just 9 days to go now. Kilmarnock as well, I should say, signed a fullback left-back yesterday. Brandon Horstrup, 23-year-old from Portsmouth, joins on a 2-year deal. Killie getting quite a bit of business done early. They brought in the right back from Hamilton as well, replacing Stephen O'Donnell. Do you think they've got a plan this season, Darren Kilmarnock?
Yeah, I would think so. Alec knows, obviously, the English scene. He'll know players down there, his contacts down there. So, and he's brought McGowan in from Hamilton. I think it's going to be hard for him to do better than Stephen O'Donnell, because obviously I think Stephen O'Donnell is a real good talent and an internationalist. He's not got a club yet, but yeah, I like Alex Dyer. I think he's an honest guy. He's obviously learned from Steve Clarke the way he wants to play, and as you just said there, Gabby, he's worried about getting the minutes into the legs. He's worried about. He's just thinking about working on things, what the way they want to play, like we've just said about Rangers and Motherwell. So I'm sure he's happy with the run out.
Alison, how do you see this season going for the Rugby Park side? Could it be another repeat of the remarkable third place finish under Steve Clarke, or are we perhaps going to see bottom part of the split finish this season? Where do you stand? What's your opinion?
Well, it's impossible to say at the minute. I think what you would have to see is the elevated position that they found themselves in with Steve Clarke is probably maybe set a false picture. I'm not sure that that's sustainable in the long term, given the budget that they would have in comparison with the rest of the league. But what I would say is I think I've got a lot of time for Alec Dyer. I think he was a very popular appointment. I know as a coach he was well regarded with the first team squad. I think they were delighted when he was given the job on a permanent basis. And sometimes I think that's half the battle when you've already got the support of the dressing room that you're in, and people are willing to buy in to the ideas that you have and the system that you want to play. And then part of it always comes down, some of it comes down to luck, and just some of it comes down to how successful that system is. But I don't think there's any question that Steve Clarke made Kilmarnock greater than the sum of their parts, but he's a fairly hefty act to follow in. But I do think they're a team who should be pushing for top six.
Quick one, I'll put you on the spot, Alison. Do you think they'll get top six?
Yes.
Okay, there we have it. Yes, they will. For Livingston, up to the same tricks. They just seem to get results, whether it's pre-season or actually when the real football starts. Alan Forrest as well. He could be a steal for them, couldn't he, Darren?
Yes, he did well. Again, he's got good football blood in him with James, and he did well at Ayr United. But the biggest thing is going to be if they lose Dykes, it's replacing him. I mean, if they get how much they get for him, say 2 million, Livingston aren't going to go out and spend £2 million. So it's just now, I would think the recruitment team is looking for someone just similar to Dykes, who's just came from Queen of the South. So you never know, someone else could come in, but it would be very, very hard for them to replace him.
F.A. Ambrose as well, notched a few goals in pre-season already. If you've got the fantasy football team, get him in now. He's in red hot form. A few friendlies to tell you about at the weekend that have been arranged. Motherwell will play Hamilton on Saturday, amongst other fixtures. Now, Celtic's pre-season has been thrown into disarray after their French tour. Lost 2 and drew 1 in France. They were meant to be playing on Saturday at Parkhead against Dundalk. But because of the latest COVID Irish travel ban, the Dundalk squad will not travel for fears that they will not be able to play their season when it starts because of quarantining rules. They thought Derry City would be able to step up, but they have now also pulled out. So they seem to be scrambling about for a game. It's believed that they have a bounce game with Motherwell on Sunday. Now, Motherwell are also playing on Saturday, so perhaps it will be a changed Motherwell 11 before also trying to squeeze in one more fixture next week before it all begins for them on Sunday at home to Hamilton. Alison, do you think Lennon will be furious with that, not being able to get a game?
I think it's very difficult. I think circumstances will be difficult. I don't know if he'll be furious, but I think what he will be is frustrated. I think we can all understand why it's been such a difficult pre-season given the circumstances with which we went into it. And I think back in March and April, no one could pinpoint a date when football would be allowed to resume and when you could get the opportunity to organise these games. So I think realistically, he'll be looking at it, and without doubt there'll be an element of frustration, because it's not the ideal preparation, especially when you're looking at Champions League qualifiers kicking off too. But the reality of the situation is that this was always going to be a very testing summer in terms of trying to organise games, just because we were in the dark for so long about what the impact of the virus was.
Darren, do you think there's any chance it could affect their start to the season, or do you think they'll be too professional, too prepared for that?
No, I think they'll be prepared for it. There's no doubt about that. Yes, you want to play games. They'll obviously have bounce games against themselves at Lennoxtown. Yes, you want to play against other teams to test. Again, I'm repeating myself, systems and trialing, will this player play here or there? They roughly know who's going to play for Celtic. But yeah, you want to get minutes into their legs. Do I think it'll affect them? I don't think so when it starts.
Okay, so as it stands, Celtic will be playing against Motherwell in a bounce game on Sunday, and possibly another fixture next week. Just a quick one. Former Scotland international Charlie Adam confirmed on Twitter an hour or so ago that he did have coronavirus. Now, that's why he missed the last 3 games of the season for his club, Reading. He's had 2 negative tests since, so is rid of the virus and appears to be okay now, but he could not play. So a shame for Charlie Adam and many other players that have been in his situation. And Alison, do you think that's something that we might just have to accept? You know, players might just get COVID-19 and won't be able to play for 2 or 3 weeks. It could happen.
Of course it could happen. I think that the players are very well protected at the minute, and they're in a bubble with they have access to constant testing, and the training regimes have been structured in such a way to keep them as safe as possible. But the fact is that if you're out and about in your daily life, if you're mixing with any element of the population, then you will have some kind of risk of coming into contact with the virus, the same as the rest of us do. I think we all have to be sensible and take the necessary precautions. But yeah, I do think there is obviously a risk of any of the players coming into contact with it. But the other thing too, like the severity of the virus can be that some people seem to recover from it fairly quickly within the 3-week or 4-week period, but for other people it tends to leave a far more lasting impact. And I think that's what you would be wary of at times, just how serious it can get. I think, I was on last Monday when Joe Miller was on, and he was saying he's fairly sure that he had it back in December, and now we're 7 months on and he still can't bring it to just go out and do a light jog, that he was still having to walk. Anytime he was trying to run, it was just too much for him. So I think you can see, I don't think you can take it lightly. And if players are testing positive, then there's no guarantee that they're going to bounce back within 3 or 4 weeks of it.
Well, we hope Charlie Adam and anyone who has been affected by COVID-19 a speedy and full recovery, and that we continue to suppress it and get back to normal as soon as possible. There we go. I was just giving my coronavirus spiel there, and that was me gone. See, that's us back now. Okay, yeah. Just wishing everyone a speedy recovery that does have coronavirus. A few comments coming in. Rory McVinish says, "What about Aberdeen?" Well, Rory, that's where we are now. Now, we can bring up the statement that Aberdeen put out this morning. They've announced 1 million of pay cuts. Here is what they said. Staff, players and management at Aberdeen are taking wage cuts that will save the club a further £1 million. The club has been in talks to agree pay cuts averaging 20% among those who earn more than £30,000 a year. These cuts will help close the widening funding gap as a result of a collapse in income due to the suspension of football, the early end to the season, and the assumption that we will be playing in front of limited crowds. Despite the swift measures put in place 4 months ago, not playing in front of full crowds will increase the initial funding gap of £5 million. projected back in March to around 10 million during the 2020-2021 season if further measures were not taken. Now, these wage cuts of £1 million, along with other measures, will help the club reduce the funding gap from 10 million to 3.8 million. Now, again, from Aberdeen, they're not hiding behind anything. They're coming out and just telling us straight away what's happening. Bad news for them. Obviously, they thought at the start in March it would just be a £5 million gap, but now it's actually £10 million. Now, they put out a further list. If you want to read it, you can find it on Aberdeen's website and plzsoccer.com of ways that they will change the gap from 10 million to 3.8 million. Darren, do you think it's smart moves, realistic moves? You're going to have to take wage cuts, 20% for everyone?
Yeah, it's very sad, Gabby, but I think it is realistic. And I feel for every club, not just Aberdeen, but when you think about Aberdeen, they've gone out, new training ground, they're talking about a new stadium. Must have been a huge buzz about the town because the stadium looked magnificent and obviously overdue a training ground that they deserve. And this happens, and as I say, to every club, but this happens to them at the time where they were trying to really move the club on. So I think everyone's going to feel it, Gabby. It's going to hit majority of the clubs. So it's great that the players, obviously, it's unfortunate they're going to have to take pay cuts, but you have to take pay cuts to try and keep the club afloat, to try and get back to football where it was, and hopefully they can get that money back.
Yeah, it is the reality for everyone across the country, across the world at the moment. Alison, what do you make of Aberdeen's almost openness and frankness with their finances and explanations for why they're doing everything and anything? Obviously, it's Dave Cormack in charge now. Do you think that's the future for clubs, explaining and being very transparent for all of their fans?
Well, to start with, I think he's been very vocal since he first came in. I think he's spoken out quite readily. I think this is just his style. I think he would like to have an open relationship almost in terms of being willing to speak out about the club. They're not alone. I think there are other clubs who are going to have to follow in the same footsteps. I think Hibs and Hearts were also talking about wage cuts. I think it's the grim reality that we find ourselves in. But what for me is quite intriguing in all of this is the balance that clubs have to find. It's very fragile when you are publicly coming out and showing the financial deficit and the problems that are there because of the impact of the virus and the lack of revenue and the way in which your club has been hit by it, to then also bringing players into the club as you seek to go forward into a new season. And I think inevitably at some point there might be questions asked if you're suggesting that you're requesting players to take a wage cut, but you're also then finding money to bring other players in. So I think that it's a very fragile balance, and I think clubs have to be mindful of that.
Dougie Liddell commenting, well done Aberdeen, cutting costs, protecting the club. Hopefully they'll be fine by next year. Yeah, I do like the way that Cormack approaches his chairmanship, if you will. Very frank, straight to the point, and I think it's quite modern as well. And I think in the future, many clubs and many chairmen will have to take that policy. One final thing on the Dons, Darren. Alison touched on it there. Do you think it might force them to sell stars? You know, they cited that £3.8 million gap. Well, perhaps that might be what Scott McKenna could reach for a fee in a championship club, or even Sam Cosgrove. Will they be tempted by that?
Well, Gabby, I think they were looking at about 4 million for Cosgrove. I think they accepted $2.5 million from a French club. So it just shows you that their value is going to go down, and some club might think they're going to get a bargain. So that's disappointing for Aberdeen, because I think they turned down a bid from Aston Villa maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, a good bid. But hindsight's a great thing. You never know that this was going to happen. They would want to keep their players to try and strengthen their chance of going further in the league, finishing challenging. And so they said, right, we're going to keep our players. We're not going to sell them cheaply. But this has kicked in, and again, they might need to if a bid comes in for both players.
Well, we're talking about transfer business there. Plenty of transfer rumours across the papers and the internet today. As always, let's start with Alfredo Morelos. Barely a day goes by when we don't speak about him, but today the club that are supposedly courting him are Lille. The French side have been linked with a £15 million move for the Star Rangers man. And this comes after they completed the €60 million sale of Victor Osimhen to Napoli. That's gone through earlier today, so they are lacking a striker. Apparently Morelos is right at the top of their target list. Now, Alison, of course, we were speaking earlier, no Defoe. Morelos is the only fit striker, first-team striker at the club. If you got offered £15 million, what do you say if you're Rangers, if you're the chairman, if you're the manager?
If you're the chairman, you're going to take it. If you're the manager, you're going to want to turn it down. That's the reality of where we are just now. But I think we all live in the real world, and if someone comes in with an offer like that, I think it's very difficult to turn it down. As much as the manager, I think would want to keep him given the circumstances with Defoe and the reliance on the team for Morelos for goals. I think since January they'll have been geared up for the fact that this was a possibility this summer.
Mm-hmm. Darren, what do you make of it? 50 million, is that about right for Morelos?
Yeah, listen, I've said before, I think he's a goal scorer. He's still young. He's still got an awful lot to learn. But the main thing, he scores goals. He gets himself in the box. He's maybe not the cleanest finisher, but as I say, 29 goals before December last year. Alison's right. If they were offered 15 million, they would take him. But I said on Tuesday, Gabby, about teams, their recruitment, the time they've had over COVID, there's no doubt Rangers have been looking at strikers. Yes, Lyndon Dykes is right on their doorstep. Sell him for 15. Would they bring in? But they would bring someone else in. Rangers will have a list of 3 or 4 strikers just in case he goes. There's no absolute doubt about that. So if it does come in, it's not going to be say, right, who are we going to go for now? They'll have someone ready to go for.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct there, Darren. Stephen Gerrard will be desperate to keep Morelos because he knows that he guarantees goals, especially in such a monumental season here in Scotland. But if he does go, I think they'll perhaps go for Dykes and one other, as you say, maybe an £8-9 million player. As we've seen, they already paid high fees for Hadji and Kent over the last 2 years. So, if they do really want their man, they will pay for him. Let's go over to the other side of Glasgow, Celtic-wise. Now, apparently, Celtic are still in talks with Greek keeper Vasilos Barkas from AEK Athens. Reports in Greece suggested they'd had a £3.5 million bid rejected earlier this week. Asking price for around £6 million, but perhaps £5 will be accepted. That one doesn't seem to go away as the phrase of forced to deal does fade away. They're also interested in a striker from West Ham, Albion Ajeti. He was signed by West Ham in 2019, £8 million. He's played 12 games and not scored at all. But the 23-year-old is interesting people at Parkhead. Now, he's the latest of a number of strikers that have been linked to Celtic. Darren, do you think that obviously the hunt for a goalkeeper signifies they want a keeper, they want someone to replace Fraser Forster? If they keep going for a striker, does that mean that they're desperate for a striker? Does it also have bad omens for Lee Griffiths?
Well, me personally, I hope it doesn't. But that's up to Lee. It's not up to anybody else. He needs to show Neil Lennon that he has made a mistake coming back unfit and overweight. And I hope, I don't know, but I hope he's working just now to get his weight down, because there's no doubt, and Neil will know, but Neil's maybe at the end of his tether with him. Neil will know that if no one's going to score more goals than Lee Griffiths, the way he finishes. He's incredible, Gabby, an unbelievable finisher, and he plays well with Edouard. Now, Klamala's come in and done well, but it's all down to Lee. I think if he comes back and he's lost the weight and he's hungry and he shows to the manager that I apologise, that shouldn't have happened, I'm ready to go again. Whether Neil gives him a chance, I don't know, but I think they will be looking for a striker just in case.
Alison, do you think it matters whether Griffiths comes back in 2 weeks' time, ready for the start of the season, firing on all canisters, or do you think they will just move for a striker anyway?
I think both are right. I think he has to come back for himself and for his own career. Maybe that career might not be at Celtic, but he has to come back and show that he has the appetite to go again and that he's prepared to knuckle down. I think the first thing he has to do is get back on side with Lennon and show that he's prepared to buckle down. Whether or not that will be sufficient to get him back into the squad is another matter. But what he does have to do is get himself into a position where he's ready to play, whether that be at Celtic or whether it be somewhere else. He's a relatively young man. I think he's 30 next month. He should be in the peak of his playing career at the minute. So his focus at the minute has to be on getting as fit as possible and proving that he's still capable of playing at this level, and really putting pressure on the manager to play him because he's too good not to be in there. But in terms of going out and looking for strikers, yep, I think Celtic will definitely still have an eye on that. And so much comes down to what will happen with Edward. Again, we touched on it earlier about the English transfer window getting up and running next week. And that's when I think you might have to brace yourself for someone coming in. I just think he's had an exceptional few seasons at Celtic. He's very young. He will get better. I think he has the potential to be better than Moussa Dembele, and I think he's capable of going on to play at a higher level. Celtic would clearly want to keep him for the 10. They'd want to keep him. It's a huge campaign for them. But again, the reality is that if someone comes in with a firm offer and puts it on the table, it changes things entirely.
I think just like Darren said earlier with Rangers, if he was to leave Morelos, they have a list of strikers ready to go. I think Celtic will be the same with Odsonne Edouard. Brace for plenty of bids. Keep your comments coming about the transfer talk. We'll read the best ones out. Finally, from us here, it's Martin Boyle. He gave an interview yesterday. He's got 1 year left on his deal at Easter Road. And apparently he is interested in Stoke City down in England. And of course, there have been links to Celtic in the past. Darren, do you rate Boyle?
Yeah, he's got pace. Michael O'Neill's just trying to call me there.
about Boyle, do you reckon?
I don't think so. He's got pace. He's scored a lot of goals. He's had a lot of assists. I think he would. Listen, when people have got pace, Gabby, they do interest clubs. And as I said, he's produced over the last year. Could I see him playing for Celtic? Probably not just now. No, with James Forrest, El Younisi, the players have got there. So I couldn't see him there. But yes, I think people would be interested in him. But it's whether they get the right money for him.
Alison, how highly do you rate Boyle? And do you see it being a move this summer or perhaps when his contract goes?
I think it just depends. Like most teams, as Darren touched on, have a short list of targets, and you maybe have your first choice player that you wish to come in and replace an outgoing player, or you maybe get down to second or third choice, and so much depends on whether or not a club gets who they go after, or whether you then fall into going in for someone else. But I've seen a bit of him. I like him. I think he's got pace, but just now I don't know that there would be a place for him at Celtic, just given the players and the personnel that are at the club at the minute. Obviously Neil Lennon will know him and know what he can do from his time at Hibs too, but I think he certainly has ambitions of going on and playing elsewhere, and if he continues doing what he's done over the last season or two, I think there'll certainly be interest, whether or not that's this window or the next.
Yeah, I think down south possibly could be the move for him. Obviously, Hibs fans will want him to stay as long as possible. A player I really like, Martin Boyle. Niall Kane commenting, Gabriel, can you see Celtic coming back in for David Turnbull for Motherwell once he's back match fit? Perhaps. I don't think this window would be the one they go for. Maybe if he gets back into the team and is scoring goals again like he did 2 campaigns ago, then we'll see Celtic go in for him perhaps at Christmas, perhaps next summer. But not yet, Niall. No. Okay, that's enough on transfer talk. Again, we're going to have to go through it. We do it every single day here. The Hearts and Partick Thistle case is still ongoing. We've had no movement there. The line today, though, is that there definitely will be a decision tomorrow. definitely will be a decision tomorrow. We've heard that one before, so I wouldn't rest your laurels on it. But they are expecting something to come out. All key witnesses have been interviewed by the three-person panel. We know that they want their relegations overturned, compensation as well. Announcement expected tomorrow. Darren, I've asked you before, but where do you see it going after such a long wait?
I'll just give the same answer, Gabby. I've said it many a times, and Peter said it. It's disappointing that it ended up like this for Hearts and for Partick Stranraer. But I don't think they'll overturn it. I think they'll get compensated. I think it'll be obviously very disappointing for them because they have taken it to court. But I think sadly that's what the outcome will be.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see for that one. And make sure you stay tuned to our social media channels. We'll let you know as soon as that breaks tomorrow what happens. Okay, that's all from Scotland. We're going to quickly go down south, where Liverpool yesterday lifted the Premier League trophy for the first time in 30 years after a 5-3 win over Chelsea. A thrilling game, but that was much of an afterthought as soon as they lifted that silverware. Now, here is a tribute from our very own Peter Martin. He's written a little poem.
The waiting is over, the storm has now passed. 30 years of hoping for the song of the lark. The sky it is golden, the trophy shines bright. Klopp and his army with no one in sight. Shankly Paisley Fagan and Sir Kenny Dalglish. 96 remembered forever on our wreath. But what of our dreams shattered through the wind and the rain? Henderson, our leader, has eased all the pain. Alison, Virgil, Gomez, Lovren and Robbo in full flow. Milner still flying, to Anfield we go. There's Trent, Joel and Alex, Keita and Shaqiri just fine. Lallana and Gigi to maintain the spine. Salah, Mane and Bobby, the Tridente up front, with Origi at corners for Barca to punt. Liverpool are champions, we are back on our perch. Champions League winners, 6 times says the search. The waiting is over, the storm has now passed. We can all hear the sweet silver song of the lark.
Some lovely words from Peter there. I think last night he was nearly as happy as Jurgen Klopp was. We can hear exactly what the Reds manager had to say after the full-time whistle.
Absolutely special. It's easy. We don't have to compare because we never won it before. We all know that it could have been different and it could have been better. Could have been worse if we wouldn't have won the game, for example. But these boys are so special. I couldn't be more proud. Throwing a performance like this tonight on the pitch in an open game, obviously, but nice goals, incredible goals, super footballing moments. And I love the game. And so we could enjoy so far and will enjoy the rest of the night.
Yeah, it was an enthralling game and an even better ceremony. Darren, did you see the ceremony at full time?
I did, yes. Wonderful. I've been lucky enough to be part of something like that, and it's just wonderful to get your hands on the trophy. And as I said, way too long for a club like Liverpool, 30 years, but they've done it now. They need to move on. They need to be really classed alongside the greats. They need to win multiple titles. Maybe not Champions League, but titles. And you see Ferguson, I saw Steve McLaren getting interviewed after they won the treble in '99, and they went in the next day, Sir Alex with all his staff, and he said, we sat down with bacon rolls and tea and all that. Right, who we signing for next year? You just move on. You've done it now. You've achieved it. It's moving on and more success. The Keanes and the Giggs and the Beckhams and all that. They want trophies, and not talking about, no want to talk about finances, but the players nowadays have all the money they need. It's trophies and it's success that they thrive for, and so that's what Liverpool need to do now. Just keep winning.
Alison, it's their 19th title now, just one behind Manchester United. Do you think they can go on and get 2021 as this group of players under this great manager?
Really depends on what happens now over the summer in terms of recruitment for other clubs. I think you'll see Man City try and step it up a bit. in order to compete and try and challenge it back. But I think Darren's right. I think the real quality teams, there's a relentlessness about them. The focus point is always on the next goal. It's always looking forward. It's always about pressing and pushing to maintain the standard and keep it going and bring in more. And I think they should enjoy their week. I think they should enjoy this moment. They've waited a long time for it. Their supporters have waited a long time for it. But I don't think it will be too long before Jurgen Klopp is sitting down with his recruitment team and you think, right, how do you get better? How do you go again? Teams treat you differently, play against you differently. Once you've won it, once you're the team to beat, then you set a standard, and the challenge then is maintaining it.
Yeah, they are now the team to beat. Thiago Alcantara from Bayern Munich seems to be their next target. Cut price deal around £30 million they seem to be getting for him. And I don't know about you two, but I really rate Thiago. I think he's a fantastic midfielder. Darren, I see you smiling there. What do you think?
He's a top player. I mean, the way he played at Barcelona, played at Bayern Munich, he is someone you always look and say, well, they've won the league, they've won it so many points. How do you can always improve your team? And I think, and this is no disrespect because they've been unbelievable, their weakest probably part of their team is probably the midfield. And that's not to, as I say, that's not to say they're not good players, but to go that next step, you need to go and try and get the best. And Thiago is without doubt one of the best.
Yeah, I think what you see with Liverpool is quite often they dominate games. They always seem to dominate games, but not necessarily with the midfield keeping the ball. It's the press and their forwards and their fullbacks. If you get someone like Thiago in there, it gives a new aspect to their play. They can keep the ball. He can pick passes through to the strikers as well. So I think if they do get him in, there'll be a force to be reckoned with on all fronts again next campaign. Darren, just want a quick word on Andy Robertson, Scotland's captain. I know you know him well. He looked delighted at the full-time whistle, didn't he?
Yeah, it's a great story, Gabby. It's just you feel proud because you've played just a little part, and all Andy needed was Jackie was brilliant. He just gave him the license to go and enjoy, go and play, go and be free in the pitch, and just show your qualities. And he did that, and from the day he walked in the door at Dundee United, his desire is beyond belief. Every single day, I think there's kids or there's players nowadays who go to training because they think they're footballers. Andy Robertson went to training, and I've had it with Billy Gilmore as well. He goes to training to make himself better every single day, and Andy Robertson's getting the rewards now because I think it's debatable. People will argue, but he's definitely one of the best fullbacks in the world, if not the best. I mean, it's incredible. Him and Trent, their assists, their energy is just absolutely incredible. Now, don't get me wrong, it does make it a lot easier when you have Virgil van Dijk beside you.
If only he played for Scotland, eh?
But there's no taking away from Andy's achievements, and as I think every member of his staff at Dundee United and every player, I'll feel really proud that you have been a little bit part of him, and but as I say, just sheer desire, ability, but sheer desire to achieve, to try and be the best, and he is the best.
Alison Carroll, Liverpool are now England's powerhouse. They're league winners, so I don't think anyone could argue with that. Alison, finally on Liverpool, who's been your player of the season? There's so many: Mane, Salah, Henderson, Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk. If you had to pick one, who would you give it to?
I think I'd probably give it to Henderson. I think he's just epitomised the leadership and the drive and commitment this term, although I think Virgil van Dijk has had an excellent campaign, and there are so many. You could go through that whole team. I mean, they've not had anyone who's just been average, have they? Which is why they've won the title. But I think for me, Henderson deserves it.
Darren, would you go Henderson as well?
Listen, Gary, he's had a wonderful year. He's had a wonderful few years, wonderful season. But what I would say is, if you took any player out of the Liverpool team, I think they could possibly be replaced. You could not replace Van Dijk. If you take Van Dijk out of the Liverpool team, they are not the same team. So I think that's where he stands head and shoulders possibly no head and shoulders above his teammates, but he is the main player for me. But I would agree with that, Alison as well. Henderson's had a fantastic. They've all had fantastic season, but he's been a great captain as well. We talk about being captains. He's managed the team really well. I think he's been an absolutely brilliant captain, and he's taken it on from someone we know up here in Steven Gerrard, and that was a hard task right away. And I think credit to Jordan Henderson the way he's handled it.
Yeah, I think both those have been impressive. But for me, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold. I just love fullbacks that can cross the ball. But that's enough on Liverpool. We'll quickly talk about United, Leicester and Chelsea. They're in for a showdown after the results. Obviously, Chelsea lost to Liverpool 5-3. United drawing 1-1 at home to West Ham. They were poor again. They seemed tired, Solskjaer's men, putting out the same 11 again and again. Of course, they lost in the FA Cup at the weekend. So they now need to avoid defeat to Leicester City on the final day. Very interesting when you've got 4th versus 5th playing each other. How do you see that one going, you two? If you just had to pick 2 of the 3 to get Champions League, Chelsea, Liverpool, Leicester, who are you tipping? Darren first?
I think I would tip Manchester United and Chelsea. I think United defence is struggling just now. They don't look confident, they don't look assured, and especially goalkeepers not looking assured just now. But I think middle to front, they are looking really good, and the 3 forwards are scoring goals, and I think that's what will get them through. And I think Chelsea, again, disappointing the goals they've lost against defensively. They've not looked very strong, but again, the goals to score, I think they'll get them there as well. So I'm going for Manchester United and Chelsea.
Alison?
I'm not sure. I think I'm really not sure. I think I'm so looking forward to that Leicester and United game on Sunday. I think much comes down to the mind games that are at play. I think when you consider the massive lead that Leicester had for the year, and the fact it looked as though in to get that Champions League place, and how it's really disintegrated since the turn of the year. I just wonder how much that might play on their minds going into the final game, when something that was almost taken for granted is on the line and could be taken away. I think it's a very, very difficult call to make. I've not been convinced by Manchester United, I would have to say, in recent games. I've not been particularly convinced by Leicester either, but I'm going to go for Leicester and Chelsea to take the 2 European places.
Yeah, I'm going with you as well. I think Leicester are just going to sneak in past United. You can check all of my predictions in Peter's stead. They're on Twitter and Instagram. Okay, final run through the Championship. As ever, it was a crazy finish, the 46th game in the English second tier. Yesterday, Leeds United were given the Championship trophy. They are up. They're back for the first time in 16 years. Fantastic news for their club. West Bromwich Albion joined them after a draw at home. They might not have joined them, but as I've been reminded here by Sean Grogan, well done to Barnsley staying up. They beat Brentford away from home in the last minute to stay up. Now, if Brentford had won that game, it would be Brentford in the Premier League for the first time. But no, they're in the playoffs. And yes, congratulations to Barnsley, who stay up. Charlton and Wigan also go down. And there was a 5-goal... There I was, mid-championship ramble there. Yep, so as I said, going down is Wigan and Charlton. I don't know if you two saw the 5-goal swing between Nottingham Forest and Swansea. Unbelievable. They just had a five-goal difference cushion, as well as 3 points. Forest lose 4-1 at home. Swansea win 4-1 away, to different teams, of course. And at the full-time whistle, Sabri Lamouchi, the Forest coach, just looked absolutely dejected. So a shame for Forest. We definitely won't be seeing them in the Premier League, but Swansea have the chance in the playoffs. One final thing to get a word from you two on. Birmingham City have announced within the last hour or so but they'll be retiring number 22 after Jude Bellingham. Now, Bellingham has completed his £25 million move to Borussia Dortmund. Of course, that's fantastic. He was the youngest ever player for the club at 16 years and just a few days last season. Scored 4 goals in the Championship this season. He's appeared 44 times to the club. So it makes it quite a strange decision to retire the number 22. Darren, do you agree?
I think it's ridiculous, Gabby. I think it's. I don't know why they're doing it. But by the way, the boy looks. As I say, I've been watching a lot of games on video for Blackpool and all that, and I've watched Birmingham. He looks a real talent. I mean, he looks a man at 16. When Rooney burst on the scene, Rooney was a man at 16, and Bellingham is just what a talent he is, and I think he will do well. He looks a level-headed boy. He took his time to make decisions. Obviously, there was a lot of clubs after him, but he took his time. But I think he'll do very well. He's made obviously a great move to Dortmund. He's looking at Sancho and thinking, well, look what he's done over there. Going to a great club, but I think it's ridiculous that they're retiring a jersey for a young boy that's played for 1 season.
Yeah, all the best to Jude Bellingham. I really like when English and Scottish players go abroad, and perhaps we'll be eating our words in 10 years' time if he's the best midfielder in the world. But yeah, it seems a little strange, retired numbers. You think Maldini or Baresi at Milan, or Javier Zanetti, Maradona at Napoli. Excuse me. Who else? We got Bobby Moore at West Ham, and then Jude Bellingham, number 22 at Birmingham. Alison.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I think it's just it's premature. I think Darren's right. He looks like an exceptional talent in the world's his oyster at the minute. But it seems an odd call to make. But actually, just while we're chatting and before we go, if I go back, someone made a point 20 minutes ago or something. Niall, I think, asked you about David Turnbull and Celtic, and what I would say is my colleague, my press colleague Stephen McGowan had a story in Monday's Daily Mail suggesting that Celtic are still interested in and could go in this window. So his track record is pretty accurate for these stuff. So I would just say to watch this space. It might materialise yet.
Yeah, Niall, if I'm saying one thing and Stephen McGowan's saying another thing, definitely listen to Stephen McGowan, not me. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. And that's a good note to end on. Thank you very much. That's all we have time for. Thanks to both of you, Darren and Alison. And thanks to you at home for all of your questions and for joining us. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe on all of our social media channels. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and Instagram. You can catch up with all of the previous football shows. And don't forget, tomorrow is on at 4 o'clock, same time as today. Once again, thank you for watching and bye-bye.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.